Last month, I did something I hate. I opened my bank statement. Not because I thought I was broke, not because I was looking for fraud. I just wanted to see where my money went. And that's when I noticed it. 10 different charges. Small ones, $4.99, $9.99, $14.99. None of them hurt, none of them felt dangerous, but together, they were costing me more every month than my groceries. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't spending this money, I wasn't choosing it, I wasn't even aware of it. It was quietly leaving my account, without ever asking permission. My name is John, and I make videos about money not from the perspective of someone who made it big, but from the perspective of someone who's just trying to make it work. Because for most people, money problems don't come from one big mistake. They come from 1,000 small ones that don't feel like mistakes at all. And today, I want to talk about one of the quietest, most dangerous ones: subscriptions. Not the obvious ones, not the gym membership you never use. I'm talking about the ones that hide in plain sight. The apps, the tools, the free trials, the services that charge just little enough that your brain doesn't bother reacting. We live in what companies proudly call the subscription economy. Everything is cheaper up front. Everything is more convenient. Everything is just one click away. And on the surface, it feels like a win. You don't need to own things anymore. You don't need to commit. You can cancel anytime. At least, that's the story. But here's what they don't tell you. Subscriptions don't make money because they're useful. They make money because they're forgettable. They're designed to disappear into the background of your life, to blend into your routine, to turn active decisions into passive defaults. And when money leaves your account without forcing you to decide, it stops feeling like spending, it starts feeling like gravity. If you're watching this and thinking, yeah, but I'm just bad with money, I want you to pause right there. Because this isn't about discipline, it's not about budgeting harder, and it's definitely not about shame. This is about systems. Systems that understand human psychology better than we understand ourselves. Systems that know we're busy, tired, overloaded, and systems that quietly monetize that. In this video, we're going to break this down step by step. We'll look at how small subscriptions turn into big financial leaks, why companies design them the way they do, why canceling feels harder than it should, and why the people who can least afford it usually pay the most. Most importantly, we'll talk about how to take control back without cutting joy out of your life, and without turning money into another source of stress. Because the goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to stop losing money to things you never consciously chose. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually added this up? Not estimated it, not guessed, actually added it up. Because here's the strange thing about subscriptions. We almost never do the math on purpose. We'll agonize over a $60 dinner. We'll debate a $300 jacket for weeks. But a 9.99 charge that happens every month? That slips right past our defenses. Why? Because our brains don't treat recurring expenses like real spending. They get filed into a different mental folder, the background noise folder. Psychologists call this mental accounting, but you don't need a textbook to understand it. Your brain hears $9.99 a month and translates it as basically free. So let's slow this down. Let's say you have a streaming service for $14.99, music for $9.99, cloud storage for $2.99, one productivity app for $7.99, another tool you signed up for during a free trial for $12.99. That's about $49 a month. Not scary, not dramatic, barely worth thinking about. Until you multiply it. That's nearly $600 a year, every year. And that's just 5 subscriptions. Most people I talk to have 8, some have 12. A few don't even know how many they have. Now here's the part that hurts a little. Because this money doesn't come out when you feel rich, it comes out when you're tired, when you're busy, when you're just trying to get through the week. It gets pulled before you can decide what else that money could have done. Before groceries, before savings, before emergencies. And because it's spread out, you never feel the pain all at once. There's no moment where you say, I chose this over that. No single decision to regret. No receipt to stare at. Just a quiet leak. And leaks are dangerous. Not because they're big, but because they're invisible. If I asked you today, how much are your subscriptions costing you this year? Could you answer without checking? Most people can't. Not because they're irresponsible, but because the system doesn't want them to. And once you understand that, the real question stops being, why didn't I notice? And becomes, why was this so easy to forget in the first place? At this point, it's tempting to think this is all accidental, that subscriptions just happened to work out this way, that nobody planned it, that it's just convenience gone a little too far. But that's not what happened, because if subscriptions were really about convenience, they would be easy to leave, and they're not. Think about how you sign up. One click, maybe two. Sometimes your phone doesn't even ask for your password anymore. Now think about canceling. You have to log in, find the settings, scroll past things you don't recognize, click manage, then subscription, then are you sure? Then tell us why. Then are you really sure? That difference is not an accident. It's called friction asymmetry. Companies spend millions of dollars figuring out how to remove friction from signing up and how to add just enough friction to leaving that you'll say, I'll do it later, and later becomes next month, then next year. Then I've already paid so much. What's the point now? This is why free trials exist. Not because companies are generous, but because free trials turn an active decision into a passive one. You didn't choose to pay, you chose not to cancel. And psychologically, those are very different things. Paying feels intentional, canceling feels like work. And when you're tired after work, after commuting, after life, work is the last thing you want. So the charge happens at 2:13 a.m. quietly, automatically. No notification that says, hey, do you still want this? Just a receipt in your inbox you'll never open. And here's the part most people don't realize. For many subscription-based companies, the most profitable customer isn't the one who loves the product, it's the one who forgot about it, the one who doesn't log in anymore, the one who stopped using it months ago, the one who meant to cancel. That's why prices creep up slowly. $1 here, $2 there, small enough not to trigger alarm, large enough to compound quietly. And once you see this, it's hard to unsee it, because this system doesn't rely on you being bad with money. It relies on you being human, busy, distracted, optimistic about future you having more time. And as long as that's true, this machine keeps running. Not loudly, not aggressively, just efficiently. Even after you understand the math, even after you see the design, most people still don't cancel. Not because they're careless, not because they're lazy, but because their brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Let's start with something called the status quo bias. Once something becomes the default, your brain treats changing it as a loss. Canceling feels like giving something up, even if you're not using it. So you think, what if I need it later? What if I cancel and regret it? Keeping it feels safer than making a decision. Then there's the sunk cost fallacy. You've already paid for 3 months, maybe 6, maybe longer, and canceling now feels like admitting that money was wasted. So instead of stopping the bleeding, you keep paying to avoid feeling bad about the past. It doesn't make sense mathematically, but emotionally, it feels easier. And then there's the most powerful one of all, time poverty. Most people don't lack intelligence about money, they lack time. After work, after commuting, after cooking, cleaning, surviving, the idea of logging in, finding the right menu, remembering passwords, answering surveys, it feels exhausting. So you tell yourself, I'll cancel this later. And later becomes next weekend, then next month, then a year from now when you notice the charge again and think, wow, I'm still paying for that? This isn't a personal flaw. It's predictable. Behavioral economists have shown this again and again. When canceling requires effort, people delay it far longer than they intend. Not because they want to pay, but because effort has a cost. And companies know this. They don't need you to love the product. They just need you to avoid one uncomfortable moment, one login, one decision, one click that feels like work. So if you've ever felt stupid for forgetting to cancel something, I want you to hear this clearly. You weren't tricked because you're bad with money. You were tricked because you're human, and the system was built around that fact. Here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Subscription traps don't hurt everyone equally. They hit the hardest where life is already heavy. If you have extra money, a few forgotten charges are annoying. If you don't, they're devastating. Because when you're living paycheck to paycheck, timing matters. A 12 charge hitting the same week as rent can mean overdraft fees, late fees, interest. One small subscription can trigger a cascade of penalties that cost far more than the original charge. And this is where the system gets especially cruel. People with less money usually have less time, longer commutes, less flexibility at work, more mental load. So the very people who most need to track every dollar are the least equipped to fight a system that requires time, attention, and energy just to stop the bleeding. It's the digital version of the Sam Vimes Boots theory. The poor don't pay more because they're irresponsible. They pay more because they can't afford the upfront cost of control. They can't afford premium banking tools, they can't afford accountants, they can't afford time off to clean up financial messes, so they pay with fees, with interest, with forgotten subscriptions that quietly compound. Meanwhile, higher income households often bundle services, use expense trackers, or have the slack to cancel things the moment they stop using them. Same services, same prices, completely different outcomes. And here's the darkest part. Subscription companies know exactly who cancels and who doesn't. They know which customers forget, which ones delay, which ones keep paying even when prices rise. And guess which group gets targeted with special offers that lock them in even longer? The people already struggling. This isn't about blaming companies for existing. It's about recognizing that a system built on forgetfulness will always extract the most from the people with the least margin for error. And when you see it this way, subscriptions stop looking like convenience. They start looking like a regressive tax. One that doesn't show up on your paycheck, but shows up everywhere else. So what do you do with this? Not in a perfect world way, not in a just budget better way, but in a way that works when you're tired, busy, and human. The first step isn't canceling everything. It's seeing clearly. Once a month, pick one day. Put it on your calendar. Call it a subscription audit. Open your bank statement, scroll slowly, and write down every recurring charge, not just the obvious ones. Look for the strange names, the abbreviations, the ones that make you think, what is that? Most people find at least one charge they don't recognize. And that moment alone is powerful, because you can't control what you can't see. The second step is to change how you pay, not just what you pay for. Use one card for subscriptions only, one account, one place where all the leaks are visible. That way, when the balance creeps up, you don't need motivation, you just notice. And noticing is half the battle. The third step is to set hard decisions, not intentions. Don't tell yourself, I'll cancel if I don't use this. Tell yourself, if I don't use this twice this month, it's gone. Decisions beat willpower every time. And here's an important reframe. Canceling a subscription is not taking something away from yourself. It's giving your future self options. That 15 could be groceries. It could be gas. It could be peace of mind when something unexpected breaks. Money isn't just money, it's flexibility. Another powerful move is to flip the default. Instead of auto-renew being the norm, make manual renewal your rule whenever possible. Yes, it's less convenient, but convenience is exactly what got us here. If something is truly valuable to you, you'll notice when it's gone. And if you don't notice, that's your answer. Finally, understand what this is really about. This isn't about being minimalist. It's not about depriving yourself. It's about choosing consciously. A subscription you actively choose every month is very different from one that survives because you forgot about it. The goal isn't 0 subscriptions. The goal is 0 unconscious ones. Because once you stop money from leaking quietly, something interesting happens. You don't suddenly feel rich. You feel calmer. You feel more in control. And for a lot of people, that feeling is worth more than any app they forgot they were paying for. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's this. You're not bad with money. You're living inside systems that make it easy to forget, easy to delay, and hard to leave. Subscription traps don't work because people are careless. They work because people are busy, because life is loud, because attention is limited. And when money leaves quietly, it stops feeling like a choice. But the moment you start noticing, everything changes. Not because you suddenly become disciplined, but because you stop letting defaults decide for you. This isn't about cutting joy out of your life. It's about choosing what's actually worth paying for. Because every dollar you stop leaking buys you something far more valuable than a service you forgot about. It buys you breathing room. It buys you options. It buys you time. And time is the one thing no subscription can give back. If this video helped you see something differently, share it with someone who's ever asked, where did my money go? Subscribe if you want more conversations like this, not about getting rich fast, but about building a life that feels lighter and more intentional. I don't want you to be wealthy just on paper. I want you to be wealthy in life.